We know design and style sells cars, especially if you're a sedan. Now, there used to be a time you could just gently evolve over generations. But what if you've been around since 1976, over 50 years? This is the Honda Accord. Everybody knows it. So what happens when you need to change up? You need to move up, you need to make that revolution. I'm Arvind from Carlist.my, and this is the 10th generation Honda Accord. So the 10th generation Honda Accord, it was launched early last year. Now, we all know what happened last year, so I suppose it didn't get the reception that it normally does. You know, the Honda Accord is a very big deal in Malaysia. So here we are, quite a few months later, and there are two variants on offer, the Honda Accord 1.5 TC and TCP, P being premium. And we'll get into why it's called that. And prices starts at 186,000 for the TC and just above 195,000 for the TCP. So rivals, you all know this by now. The famed rival, Toyota Camry. And now, given the tech structures on these cars and seeing as more of them are becoming fully imported cars, the Accord is still a locally assembled CKD car. A lot of them have become jumbled into this price range, right about 180 to about 210,000. So what do you get for that? You get the Camry, you get the Hyundai Sonata, you get the Mazda 6, and you get the Volkswagen Passat. So these are its main rivals. So does it have what it takes to take them on? Let's go find out. Now talking about style, at the front we have very sleek LED headlamps. A very three-dimensional grille. So now it's broken up into two distinct pieces. You got piano black at the bottom half, and then you got this chrome lining that spreads the whole width of the car. It is actually wider than the old car, and it is sort of a revisit of basic Honda design principles from way back when. It's supposed to be low slung, it's supposed to be wide and give you that sporty stance. Now, lower down you have LED fog lamp. Now, isn't that a face you would move aside for? Down the side is where you see most of the design revolution. It's gone from a three-box sedan, like what we know of the Accord for all this time, to now a fastback profile. So what you see is this long tapering roofline that stretches really all the way to the back boot. Now I admit I was a bit divided on it. I didn't know it would work, but having seen it in the flesh, I love it. This car looks sleek, it looks elegant, it looks plush, and it looks like it commands the price tag that it has. Now, the TCP gets an 18-inch alloy wheel. The TC gets a 17-inch alloy wheel, and it's a size smaller. Now, I have to point out this. I love that it sweeps up, this body line sweeps up from the skirts, and it continues all the way to the back. Now, what it does is it gives that side of the car that very beefy, very muscular look, and I don't know, I'm just a sucker for it. I love it. As we come around to the rear haunches or the rear half of the car, you see the roof, the window line kind of have a double layer. So what this does, it goes from here, it extends, and then it kind of comes to meet the rear boot line. So again, another neat design detail. Around the back, we have our famous Ketam headlights that we had in the Civic. So this is I suppose a more premium interpretation. It looks bigger, of course, so you get basically sort of two main levels of your light beam, and it gives the car that width. In the lower regions of the bumper, you get two very angular exhaust tips at either end. Now we open up the boot. It's massive, 550 liters of boot space. Now that pretty much is, I don't know if it's the biggest. It's probably definitely the biggest in its class. It's probably biggest among any sedan you can find. And just to give you an impression of that, I'm 6 foot. Okay. So under the hood of the Honda Accord is the proven 1.5 litre Earth Dreams VTEC turbo 4-cylinder engine. So 1.5 litres turbocharged, sending all its power to a Earth Dreams CVT type transmission which power the front wheels. Now, curious thing is, our Malaysian version gets more power, about 11 to 14 horsepower if I'm not mistaken, than the version sold in Thailand and Indonesia. So it is a very stout, very powerful unit. And in terms of its direct competitors like the Camry and the Mazda 6 and even the Passat, this car puts out more horsepower at 201 PS and 260 Newton meters of torque. Now, on the inside of the Honda Accord, the first impression is that wood trim, the perforated leather seats, this very nicely designed steering wheel. So it feels like it's a way better place to sit in than it was before. I especially like the dual zone climate control, the very simplistic layout of the dashboard, which is of course highlighted by this 8-inch advanced audio infotainment system, which now comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that beams to a 10-speaker audio setup. Now, if you look down the center, you get a 7-inch digital TFT display, which is, you can cycle through for different types of information, or you can have the RPM meter like how you would in the older versions. So besides that, start-stop, you got the walkaway auto lock like you get in the Honda Civic as well. And yeah, it's a very, very nice place to be in. Now, down in the lower regions of the center console, you actually get a key wireless charger, which, if your phone has the function, you simply slot your phone in there and it does the rest. It will charge the phone. There is also a USB adapter for connecting to your phone and a 12-volt power socket. Further down, you get your usual cubby holes, and everything else is pretty much simple. Just a simplistic styling gear knob and your Econ and Sport buttons. Now, we mentioned earlier that this was the Honda Accord 1.5 TCP. So the P standing for premium, which means it gets, for that extra roughly 10,000, it gets Honda Sensing, the full Honda Sensing suite of active safety functions. Now, we've seen this before with the Honda Civic and the Honda CR-V. So a lot of it is well established by now. You get lane keeping assist, lane departure warning, collision mitigation braking system, which basically it's like AEB, and forward collision warning. Now, a crucial thing that the 10th gen Accord get that the 9th gen facelift didn't get was low speed follow. So that when you have your adaptive cruise control enabled, you can go right to a stop, and then with a flick of the pedal, it will start moving again. So that was a function that the older facelifted 9th generation Accord didn't get, although it did get the rest of the Honda Sensing functions. So all in all, the Accord comes with a 5-star ASEAN NCAP rating, which means it's a very, very safe place to put your family in. Now, quite possibly the second best thing of the new Honda Accord is just the rear. I mean, Honda Accords were never short on space. They were always very accommodating, you had generous legroom and everything. But for the first time, you really feel you're sitting in something that's really plush, and it's so premium. The touch surfaces are amazing, and you get this commanding view of the front. So it's, I had my family in here, my daughter in the child seat, and they just absolutely loved it. They loved the space that it gave them, and that roominess that the cabin overall has. So the last time I believe I had this much leg room and headroom and shoulder room, I think I was seated in a BMW 7 Series. Okay guys, we're in the Honda Accord. Right now we're going for a short drive, and so the burning question, how is it like to drive? Is it any better than the older cars? I really liked the older 9th generation Honda Accord, in particular the 2.4 litre version or variant, and I felt it had a very good balance of power and poise and practicality, and it was a genuinely nice car to drive. It listened to you, and it was a very composed car. And I mentioned earlier that the back was the second best thing. The absolute best thing about the 10 generation Accord is just how it drives. You would have, I mean, I didn't think that they could improve so much within one generation, but this car is so, I would say it's so engaging to drive. I mean, one, you start with the interior. It's a driver-focused cockpit. It's well laid out. The steering wheel, the seating position, the overall visibility of the outside. It's a very simple car to get in, get used to, and you have this impression that you can place the car anywhere you want along the road, in the corner. You want to hit an apex, if you will. So it's a very easy car to get in, get used to, and it feels very much in tune with what you want, you know. So that's why I feel Honda have made so much improvement. The steering is nice, it's direct, it's light. I mean, of course, it doesn't have the best feedback. I would say maybe the Mazda 6 achieves better in that aspect, but it does the job very well. You know, it doesn't take too much effort, and it's very linear. It's very easy to get the car pointed how you want to. Now, if we look at the power, the ratio of, you know, I mean, this is not a very light car either. It's about 1,550 kilos, so it's not a light car, but it manages to feel very light on its feet. It feels very composed, you know, like there's very little body roll and all that, and I think that is the most impressive factor. Like if you were to go into a corner, you know, you hit on the brakes are nice and linear, the car squats, it turn in, and voila, it's a very, very, very composed operation. You know, you don't feel the car trying to fight you, or the car is trying to move about underneath you. It just kind of follows the line. You point it where you want to go, and it listens. So how does it compare against its rivals? Well, the biggest improvement, because when the Camry came out, and it came out earlier, it was leaps and bounds better than the older version. I mean, it evolved into this, you know, very European style of driving dynamics, and the car does drive amazingly well. In the case of the Accord, where it was already a very competent car and it was already more of a driver's car, if you will, Honda have managed to make it a lot better than before. I think they're very, very equal in terms of in terms of driving stability and comfort levels and performance. Of course, I'll give it to the Honda. I think it's definitely more powerful, but the most impressive thing about the Accord is response. So let's say I'm just driving around here, and I just want to pick up speed, or maybe I want to be a bit more spirited. I get into sports mode. Immediately the revs rise. I can drop a gear. And it's very composed. So I love that immediacy, and it understands what you want, and voila, and you hit the throttle and it goes. So it's very responsive in that way, and I think that's where the Honda does a lot better than the Camry. The Camry kind of wants to just cruise around, and it feels a bit uncomfortable, a bit contrived when you're trying to push it, or be a bit playful with it. But the Honda just knows what you want. Now, of course, it gives a little bit off in terms of the Mazda 6. I think it's still that sort of top of the shelf when it comes to driver engagement and response, but the Honda is closer than ever to the Mazda 6, I would say, in this current 10 generation. So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed this small review of the all-new 10 generation Honda Accord. I have sure loved it. I would love to own one, but until next time, thank you, drive safe, stay safe.